What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa,
And I'm Justine.
and this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. Today in the show, it's going to be a little bit of a different take on an episode, but a really important one. And I know some other podcasts have been doing it, but I just think that having a podcast with two women on it and our experiences will help. We're going to be talking about how to create a safer scene in our music scene. And I think we can carry this into all the other scenes as well. But what I think is what's really important to talk about this is we are in a time where there's a lot of discussions going on about certain artists up there. And we're not just going to hone in on one artist, but we're going to collectively kind of talk about it. And I just think that we're in 2025. Music festivals are all the rage. We have so many content creators out there. And as older women, I would love to now look back at our younger time in the scene and kind of protect anyone. I want to be that mother hen of the elder emos and protect these young girls that maybe put in the positions that we were and others.
Mhm.
So I kind of just want to start and bring this conversation back, Justine, about like Warp Tour. We got to start
Yeah.
there because I mean, for me, I always bring that up. So for you, I kind of want to hear what were your experiences when you were younger, whether it's your local music scene or just Warp Tour in general. What do you remember about being a young girl during that era? It's a wild era to think about.
So most experiences that I tend to see online in general from like elder emos are more so young millennial to like elder Gen Z. And while obviously those experiences are very much needed as well and need to be shared, I think we really wanted to share ours as well. I guess because it makes us more like ancient emos, I guess. Because
Hmm.
anytime I see anybody using the term elder emo, they're significantly younger than us.
Yes.
And it's kind of like centered around like the mid like 2015 type era of like Warp Tour and the scene. And it's like, we were there long before that. And I think people need to understand that this, like, obviously there were issues then, especially with Warp Tour, but it was happening way before that. Like there
Hmm.
was a build up there. And it's something that we all kind of experienced as, older millennials. And so yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that for a second because I don't think that people necessarily think about the age when they use the term elder emo. And so I'm kind of like when I find out some people that are calling themselves elder emos, I'm like, oh, I'm like 10 years older than you. Like
Hmm.
I feel
Yeah.
so old.
And
But
and not to
it,
sound like in a negative way saying that, but I think it's so
yeah,
important
no,
because
definitely not.
I think it's so important for us to talk about it because as the elder emo, the eldest
Yeah.
emos, right? Whatever you want to
Yeah.
say, maybe eldest emos. I think that's a good take. But I think for me and what you just said too is it's very important because important to highlight the certain part that we grew up in and that
Yeah.
we're still seeing that stuff today. And I know that's why it was really important to do this episode, because there's been so much that just even hearing, like I said, okay, we're going to
Yeah.
talk about Warped Tour.
Yeah.
Hearing Warped Tour coming back for me was one of those things that I was not,
We didn't want it to
I
happen.
did not want it to happen. I was not
Yeah.
woohoo, bells and whistles. I was one of those people, and not to bring it down and be negative.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't really want it to come back, and I was almost happy when it ended
Yeah.
because of
No, yeah.
the what it created there.
I
And it,
think
yeah.
a lot of women in the scene kind of felt the same. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, obviously, we're not a monolith, but like the majority of women that were heavily involved in the scene, we didn't want Warped Tour to come back.
No.
And we weren't happy. And then, there's some bands that were included on the list that were like, see, no, like, it's not changed, but
And the thing is too, and I will say this before we get into our discussion about this is in that so some people are saying they may have already shut this off already or whatever they want to say. But for me, I say that as a place of in Warped Tour gave me my start. And my start, like,
yeah.
come on, guys, I am not this huge podcast, but it gave me my
No.
start.
It's like a double-edged sword.
I did
It's
street
great
yeah.
things happen from it, but also really bad things happen from it. So
Yeah.
it's like two things can be true at once.
Right. And I think it's okay to say that too. And like what we'll talk about later too, I think it's really okay to say, yeah, this gave me my start, especially if you're in a band or a musician.
Yeah.
But hey, let's also talk about like kind of the dirty side of it and the negative side of it of what kind of went on. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that there's more people talking about it because I remember when Warped Tour was
Hmm.
coming back, there were a couple articles of women speaking out.
Yeah.
I think it was Best X or Your Best X. She spoke out about it, and other people, and also like how like I know everyone praises Kevin Lyman. I'm gonna sit here because I have no
Mhm.
affiliation with Warped Tour. I
Yeah.
don't care about
We can
my
kind of say what we
opinion.
want.
I do think he and them really dropped the ball, but
Yeah.
in many cases, which I know we'll get into. But for you, what do you remember about like attending Warped Tour as a young girl or woman, like, or young girl, right now, woman, you were a young girl. Like, we were both young girls. Like, we have to highlight
Young.
that. We were young, we were teenagers.
Yeah.
My first Warped
Uh,
Tour, I
Yeah.
was 16. So young.
I think I was 14, my first Warp Tour. But it's one of those things. Like, we're bringing up Warp Tour in general because, to be perfectly honest, like, Warp Tour was the precedent of how things got to where they are today. You had bands that were small and bands that were big, and the thing is, when you put together big and small, the smaller bands start to learn the bad behaviors of the bigger bands,
Yeah.
and they think that's normal. And then they take it on, and it's kind of this really bad domino effect. And it just gives it a sense of normalcy, and which perpetuated, everything today. Girls were given special treatment, like getting free merch, getting special access for being attractive. And the thing is, nobody stopped to be like, "How old are you?"
Oh,
That was
yeah.
never a thing. Age was never a factor, and that didn't make it okay. It was, "You're a pretty face, and we're going to give you a little something extra," And that obviously laid a path for more things to come in that kind of treatment, to getting like messenger names from guys in bands, to getting their phone numbers, which always led to something sexual at some point in time. And
Mm-hmm.
again, age was never a factor. Nobody asked ages. Nobody cared about ages. And that didn't make it okay. And I keep seeing some people in comments online when it regards to that, like, well, I didn't care. Nobody asked me about it. It's like, yeah, because it was normalized. And that didn't make it okay.
Well, so that's what you just said there, because nowadays I see a lot of people say, hey, that was just the thing. That was just the time. This is a,
Hmm.
listen, just because it was normalized in the time
Yeah.
does not mean it was okay.
And it's making a lot of people, I see a lot of people not even really taking the mental, like, emotional capacity to realize that that is grooming.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, you know, talk online where people aren't really understanding what grooming is. I'm seeing some people wake up that are women now that are like, "Oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
that was grooming,"
Oh,
And I mean, it's happened to a lot of us. Like, sometimes it didn't really hit you till now, but yeah, it's like that's a huge talk. Age was never in the conversation,
mm-hmm.
and that doesn't make it okay. But it's important to note that, because that's a problem, and it's
Yeah.
still a problem.
Oh, and kind of what to go back, even like if you look at now, to kind of talk about now, when you said, oh, girls were given
Mhm.
free merch,
Yeah.
privileges, where else do we see that? We see that in these content creators, these good
Yeah.
looking
Oh yeah.
young, you see that. What do they get
Absolutely.
from PR agencies and management? Oh, if you do
Mhm.
this, you get free tickets, you get backstage access to when we were young, you get tickets,
Yeah.
you get this. It's crazy that we're talking about Warped Tour that started and then now it's coming back, right?
Yep.
And it's so old. Now we see that same design pattern in the same industry with these young, good looking content creators with same perks, not Warped Tour, but same kind of pattern you see. And
And
that wait, and
it's
that before I say that too, I don't want people to think take that like every PR or every manager is doing that,
oh yeah,
but a
no.
lot of them I'm sure are
A
taking I
lot of
yeah.
them are taking advantage, but it doesn't mean that like every
Yeah,
person that gives you a PR package is that
because
way. This is talking past tense, especially.
yes,
Like it was different.
because I've been blessed with a lot of the people that I work with for us on behalf of
Yeah.
us. I'll do the emails and everything. And I'll say this, the people that I have had interactions with have been so wonderful and so
Mhm.
awesome and kind of like, oh, that's not happening. But then I have to check myself when I hear stories and I'm like, it is happening, just not to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it is like it's the cycle. I'm like, holy shit, like it's happening again when I hear young girls maybe tell me, oh yeah, I was offered this if I do
Mhm.
this. And I'm like, see, like
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
It's one of those things too. Like the retrospect and everything, and the idea of Warped Tour coming back is it's nostalgia. And the thing about nostalgia is you only remember the good parts.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the bad parts weren't there, but also to like highlight the fact that there are a lot of women that are waking up and realizing a lot of things they experienced were grooming is because so when Warped Tour happened, you would get all these special treatment. Your frontal lobe has not yet developed, and I know
Mm-hmm.
we use that phrase a lot, joking and everything, but it's true. Like you're not going to have the mental capacity to pick up on a lot of things that you would if you were older.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes you think like you're special, you're the
Mm-hmm.
chosen one. It really feeds to your ego when you're younger of like, man, I must really be hot. And it always ends ugly. And because of all this and this scene, we kind of developed like a sense of a girl code in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because a lot of your favorites who I happen to see you mention in comments being like, I'm thank God I was this fan. And I wasn't a fan of this one that got called out for allegations. I hate to break it to you. A lot of these bands that you're all are putting on a pedestal and you're trying to say they're better than others have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're equal or even worse than the ones that have had allegations brought out. But the thing is, they just haven't had their victims feel safe enough to be able to call it out because a lot of people in the scene were aware of certain bands because the victim could not come forward because they were scared to because they were silenced basically in some way or another. So there are a lot of bands who have not had allegations called out who have allegations.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's like you can't put everybody up on a pedestal and say this one's better than this one because you never know. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, when it comes to allegations, the only people that can come forward to bring about it is the victims. And while a lot of us know of these bands, it is not public. The only person that is able to bring that forward is the victim themselves. That doesn't mean that it's not happening. There's not allegations towards another band.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue. I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked to you about
Yeah.
it. There's some things I've told people too, and I think it's important to note that I always say this, like obviously, like I said, me growing up as a young girl, going to shows, starting at basement shows, VFWs, churches. I did a lot of that on a Saturday night. But I think that was a different space. And I'm going to say
Yeah.
that. Like for me, it was a different space. It was a lot of friends, it was a lot of the community. I didn't face a lot of that until I started going into the city and
Mhm.
festivals and bigger
Yeah.
venues, and then sort of submerged myself more into the music scene too, to where I was promoting, I was doing merch. I would actively be a part of my community back in Illinois. And I, with that, you got some bigger bands that wanted to come hang out in your scene. And again, I'm not naming names, but I
Yeah.
think it's one of those things that I always
That's
say
why I'm
it's
like,
not my story to
the
tell,
only
but
person to come forward when it comes to things are the victims themselves.
yeah. And that's why what I do in that situation, I tell people to when they're like, hey, why don't you go see this band? And I'm just like, mm.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things
Mhm.
that for me, it's like, again, like we said, it's not my story to tell,
That's what
but
kind of said that it's a sense of girl code.
yes. And it's
We
one of
tell
those
each
things.
other to know that each other's safe, but we're not going to tell that story because it's not our story to tell.
Well,
But also, it's people need to realize that the scariest thing about allegations and being a victim is not the band necessarily themselves, it's the fandom. The
mhm.
fandom is where allegations are hard to bring up
Yeah.
because
And
fandom's scarier than the abuser themselves sometimes.
well,
Like,
and I'm gonna bring it up now, even though like it kind of goes into that because, like, all
yeah,
right, so we touched on Warped Tour and then we're kind of evolving into the music industry as a whole. And I think what you just brought up about fandoms was so obviously by now everyone read the latest Jesse Lacey.
yeah,
And listen, I'm not here to bash brand new. I'm not here
yeah.
to even talk
We're not here
a
to
lot.
tell you what
I
you need to
I'm
do.
I'm not even really sitting here to open up this big thing about Jesse Lacey. I think everybody has their own
Yeah.
thing. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on that because okay, it is what it is. But and again, two huge brand new fans here, so you're not
Mhm.
getting that. But like,
Yeah.
so I remember I was on TikTok and I got approached by Ayana who wrote that article on Medium. And it was before it was really public. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that as, oh my God, I was one of the
Yeah,
people.
no.
Like, I'm saying that look at the lengths she felt she had to go because she said the bigger
Mhm.
publications didn't want this story back then.
Yeah.
She came to me, I think, because I was a podcast, maybe assumed we were a bigger publication or someone to get out. I do firmly believe by me sharing and getting it out there, I do firmly believe that helped those bigger publications. And hats off to them for finally taking notice. I don't know why
Yeah.
they didn't
Took
in the
long
first
enough, but
place took long enough.
Mhm.
But I remember talking with her in a message and she wanted me to get everything out there. And it was one of the things of the brand new fandom. I was a part of that. We are crazy.
Yeah.
We are insane. A brand new tattoo, ride or die,
Yeah.
brand new.
We both have brand
Um,
new tattoos.
love
But yeah.
him. Love Jesse Lacey as a person. I was like, oh my God, that is
Mhm.
everything to me. He's God. But I think it really took me out of that. And it shouldn't have taken me talking to the victim. I
Yeah.
should have already been in a spot of like, hey, whoa. But that conversation I had with her, although brief, it really showed me like one thing she had said, and I want to highlight that because I talked about it a little bit today with some other content creators. Not that I consider myself one people, but I talked about that with some content creators. And I talked to that about so many times we'll say, oh, well, they've changed, they've made
Mhm.
amends, they've worked on
Yeah.
themselves. I think one thing she said in her article was more so like, why is it that we say, oh, they've worked on themselves, but we
Mhm.
don't think about the victims, right? And what that means for
Yeah.
them, for these people coming
It's
forward and still out
yeah.
there because the fandoms are still like rah, 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 like down their
Mhm.
throat. And I
I
think
don't think
we
people
don't. We don't
understand.
know these people personally. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
guys, I'm sorry. I love so many people. We had our favorite musician of all time. I have so many
Mhm.
interactions with Anthony Green. Do I know him personally? No, I don't. I
No.
know the Anthony Green that sings the beautiful music, writes the beautiful music, is a
Mhm.
wonderful and amazing human being that I interact with that shows. I think it's very important that we all understand that like we don't know these people
Yeah.
and why we have to let and again, that's also why argument of, oh, some of these allegations, how do we know if they're true? I understand and respect that too, because yeah, how do we know? We don't know that person either. But I think that in that situation, for me, it was like everything is in front of you. And I think we have to take these seriously because
Mhm.
clearly she wasn't taken seriously before
Yeah.
and now she is. And I think the fandoms need to chill the fuck out because
Yeah.
I am a member of so many little fandoms and I can tell you that even me, and I'll take accountability for this, when the first allegations came out of Jesse Lacey, I found myself making almost like, well, that was someone he dated. Well,
Yeah.
that was just Skype. And I think like, why did I do that? I don't know him. And I'm speaking to anyone listening to this that may be that similar person
Mhm.
like what again, we don't know these people. And I think in order to keep the scene safe, we need to hold all accountable, even your favorite band, even someone you've met, because I've met him, even someone you love so much their music, hold them accountable and don't sit there and make excuses for someone you don't know
Mhm.
because you don't know. You don't know what happened. But when you see, especially in the article, and it sucks that it took that, photos and things like that nature, I think we need to take people seriously in that. And that's why this culture of this is why brand new can come back and there's nothing, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit. They sold out those tours, and I think that that just speaks to the scene in general. As long as you
Yeah.
can make money and you are someone like Jesse
Mhm.
Lacey,
Yep.
it doesn't matter. Or if you're a smaller band like Saves the Day and those allegations,
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, it's just Saves the Day. I don't care." Or there's no, at the end of the day, it's one of those things of, and I know I'm going on a little rant, but it's so important. Like, I think it's really important to say, we need to hold all accountable, not just the people you like or you don't like or
Hmm.
whatever, or you never liked. You want to be one of those people because I think that it's really important that we hold all accountable because that's why these bands keep getting shows and can do this.
For sure. It's one of those things. There's a lot of bands who have had allegations, and it's like, I don't know what happened. Like, why has nobody else talked about this? And you guys, like, I don't even think it made a blip. Like, you've got The Used, where you have Quinn came out about what Bert did to him, and he's gonna have a like. Didn't he say he was gonna have a book or something?
Hmm.
You have that. Like you mentioned, Saves the Day. Saves the Day got brushed under really fast, which I think another part of those are the fact that they're male victims.
Hmm.
And then you have artists that where the woman was the perpetrator, like Melanie Martinez. Her allegations came out years ago, and people just kept saying, like, oh, that girl lied and all this. And until recently, she made a TikTok account for the first time trying to bring it up again. And finally, some of the fans from Melly Martinez are kind of waking up to that a little bit, not entirely, because it's another fandom where people are just like don't want to listen to anything. You know what I mean? But that goes kind of into what I want to talk about is that like a huge issue again, it's the parasocial relationship where you're so like related to the music or the art itself. And so you think you know the person,
Hmm.
but you don't know the person. Like I really like to remind people that as somebody who is a survivor of abuse is that abusers do not abuse every single person they encounter. That doesn't mean that they're not abusive. It doesn't mean that they're not capable of abuse. Because if an abuser were to abuse every single person they encountered, they wouldn't be a problem anymore, would they?
Well, think about like what you
Like,
just said. Like, I've said this a million times to people. I've met Chelsea Lacey. I was in a
yeah.
Borders books. It was a random thing. And at
Mm-hmm.
that moment, it was like, holy shit, this is the highlight of my life. I've met Chelsea
Mm-hmm.
Lacey. He was so kind. I always like to tell people that too. Like, just because I met him and
Mm-hmm.
nothing happened and he was
Yeah.
so kind, he was so wonderful, that doesn't mean that it discredits
Yeah.
anyone that has come forward and that may
And
come
a lot of
forward.
people have trouble making that connection
Hmm.
because they want to think that, like, okay, well, if he's an abuser, he should have been abusive to me. It's like, that's not how it
Yeah.
works.
No. And I
Because
think,
if it was, all the abusers out there would be taken care of.
yeah. And I
They
think,
learn to adapt, they learn to do things out of their own survival. It's
yeah,
not going to work that way.
no. And I think, like that's the thing. And I think overall as a scene, I don't know, it kind of goes into what we're already nextly going to talk about is like where they've gone wrong. So I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that everything we just said is like, where have they gone
Mhm.
wrong? The accountability, the holding, the parasocial relationships. And I think the picking and choosing, which is something we've talked about
Mhm.
a lot
Yeah,
of
we talk
the,
about that a lot.
and I always say this because of that is the picking and choosing of the fact that we, again, if you don't like them,
It's
you
like
never like them, or, oh, they're
saying
okay,
that
they're not okay. And then
this
it's,
band is worth the scrutiny, but you're going to somebody else who has had heavily problematic allegations, and that's fine. So, like, why is one better than the other for you?
yes. And I think, and also like where they've gone wrong is not
Yeah.
protecting, if you even talk about in venues and not protecting young
Hmm.
girls or at the festivals or agencies having people that they know are doing these things. I can't tell
Yeah.
you, I have not ran into this yet, but I think that there are people that know these people are doing these things, whether it's for free
Hmm.
merch or free that. And maybe you don't consider them a predator because they're just like in some girl's DMs doing this, whether
Hmm.
it's an influencer or something.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, if these people are working at these agencies and working at these labels or these venues and they're doing this and you know it is, and you're kind of brushing it off because it's like, oh yeah, look at him go, look at him. Or you're applauding that behavior, you are absolutely just letting those things happen
Yeah.
because by you not now I know and this is the other problem where they've gone wrong is people, whether it's bands on tours, bands in venues, people in PR, people in record labels, these people, if they're powerful and you're underneath, you're not maybe going to say something. And again, I speak from
Hmm.
this because I've always been someone, I'll say this, there have been opportunities I've had in my life that I have turned down. I left this industry for a while because of some things I was facing. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. I'm not
Hmm.
ready to go there, but there were certain things that I witnessed people in the industry do that I did not feel safe. And I think that it's one of those things of nobody spoke up
Hmm.
because they didn't want themselves to be in the chopping block or
Yeah.
they didn't want to be known as that guy. And we have a
There's
lot of
a
those
power
people.
play
Yeah, we,
with a lot of this. Is
yes.
that like, and that kind of goes in with me talking about how earlier about like victims a lot of times don't come forward because of like the power of the fandom, the power of the artist at hand. If somebody's an influencer or a musician or anything that has a massive following, and you are either a smaller creator, like a brand new person in the scene, anything like
Mhm.
that, you are not surrounded with that much people that's going to try to create a buffer for you. That's what a power play is. Okay, like if you have this massive fandom to do like with what has happened with brand new, to be like, oh well, no, this girl is making this up and all this, and just completely discount everything that's happened. That is a power move. That's a power play, and that's what a lot of abusive people tend to do. They use that and weaponize that to keep continuing the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
and
you, in turn, for defending these people that you don't know, you're being
that's
used as a pawn.
yes, and that's the thing I think people need to know is, and when I say that and bring that up, and I know I'm really vague about that because of just things like I can't,
Mhm. That's fine.
I don't know, I don't
Yeah,
want to open
that's
up yet
fine.
about that, but like for
It's
me,
okay.
it's one of those things of like when I'm one of those people that people are never going to believe this, but I will always, and I always was this way. I would never just sit back. Like I was going to speak up and say, like, no, because again, this was not going to be my living. I mean, at one point I thought it was, but this was not going to be my living. I didn't have to worry about that. But I think that there are a lot of people that I still see and that use these dynamics.
Hmm.
And it bothers me because the people underneath them are like, well, they didn't mean that. They're just being a typical guy. Like all guys
Yeah.
do this. Okay, but why is that a good thing? And I think that
Hmm.
my fear and why I want to always talk about this is my fear is now that we're older, is these young girls I see that they're going to be put in these positions. They're going to be
Yeah.
put in these positions that I once was. And I almost, again, want to be like that mother hen of like,
Hmm.
now I am in a position where I do feel strong to speak up and I want to speak up for them. And I want to say, hey, and I will say, I want everyone to know this too. There have been people that I've almost, and how I'm doing that, I should say, like, and keeping a safer scene is there are people we're going to have on the show. And upon doing research, like I'm a crazy researcher, I can
Hmm.
find out your favorite color, but and like I'm one click away from like someone knowing that. But I think that there are many people I've almost had on the show, and
Yeah.
upon learning things, immediately pull the plug.
Yep.
So I think it doesn't just go to people in the industry of PR and managers and venues. It goes to people like us, like podcasters.
Yeah.
If you are a podcaster and I hate even calling I'm not a podcaster, but I just whatever we are. But like
I mean, we are,
for
but
for
yeah.
me, it's one of those things of if you have a podcast and
Hmm.
you have to look at almost like a bigger like that's your name. We are
Yeah.
stereotherapy and whoever your podcast is. You have to think, do I want to be associated with this just for a
Yeah.
view, a click, a
Yeah.
share, a bigger, maybe press tent when we were young opportunity
Yeah.
because I take on this band. You have to really look at, do you want to be known to take on and give these platforms?
Yeah.
There have been a few bands that I have upon research pulled the plug on.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people would disagree with that, or I don't take them on. And they are bands that probably could have given us the views and given that. But I
Yeah.
always want to be upfront and always be someone to not just sit here and talk the talk on a podcast episode, but say, like, I don't give those
Mhm.
platforms. And if I see
Yeah.
someone have them on, or going to have them on. There have been other podcasts, again, I'm not going to name names, that
Hmm.
I have known that they were going to have a certain people on that I know that they are not keeping the scene safe. I reach out to them in a DM. They can do what they
Hmm.
want with it. I
Yeah.
will say, anyone I've reached out to about certain people that I have known about that are not keeping the scene safe, they have not taken them on either, and they have thanked me. And I think that's how we
Yeah.
build community. That's how we keep the scene safe from our
Yeah.
end
Because the
because
best we can do is not platform people that we know have
Mhm.
any type of allegations against them or whatnot.
Well, and that's
And
what I
me
mean.
and Lisa have had this talk many times before where it's like we plan to prepare ourselves because here's the thing. Even if we couldn't find the research for it, because again, things happen where victims cannot come forward or whatnot, we're prepared to, like we've talked about it before, we're like, there's a chance that anybody that we have on the show could eventually have something come out against them,
Hmm.
and we absolutely would immediately stand up for those victims.
Hmm.
And that's the thing between me and Lisa. Like, we have constantly talked about how we would never put our morals out the window
Hmm.
for any kind of views or following. We don't believe in that. Like,
No,
we do this because we love it. We do this because we want there to be a safe space out there. But we would never just be like, ah, well, there's some allegations out about him, but you know what? That makes some really good episodes. So we're going to keep on pushing that out because that's not
or
how we are. That's not who we are as people. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that do not believe that, and they want to get all the views and following that they can do. And they don't care
Mhm.
about morals. But like, we need more people in this scene who will put their foot down and be like, no, we're not giving that person a platform. And
Mhm.
we try our best to do that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and it's
Um,
hard. I will say it's one of those things that it's hard too because I know that's when people have said to me, "Oh, Lisa, you are alienating yourself. You're making it." Because again, this
mhm.
is where the power play comes in.
Yeah.
Because if I don't take
Yeah.
on and I say, "No, I don't think they really align with us," I always word it differently because again, you got to be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, especially if they're that way, I don't need people attacking me. I have
Yeah.
too much stress in my life. I'm
If
trying to
you
have a
were to
kid.
just
Um,
like, if you're gonna be there's a reason why I'm probably not in charge of
yeah,
trying to talk to some of these people.
it's
Because with my autism, I speak really blunt sometimes. So like,
and
I would absolutely make people
oh,
like come for us. But
and
like,
and again, it's where the
you know,
power play and where I
yeah.
say like I know like because again, but again, I treat this as this is my business. This is my
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yeah.
I don't care if a PR person is pissed at me because I won't
Yeah.
take on someone because it doesn't fit with my morals. And again, I know not everybody agrees, and that's cool, but I think you should also be prepared that if I see you online
Mm-hmm.
and you are constantly
Hmm.
talking about safe scenes, this and you go after this person or that person, but I
Yeah.
see you constantly give your platform to people that have
Yeah.
known,
Who
again,
have had allegations
I'm going
out
to
about
say
them. Hmm.
known, right? Because maybe if you don't know, but
Yeah.
known allegations or people that aren't keeping the scene safe,
Yeah.
then I am going to sit there and say
It's
that, you know what,
hypocritical.
it's hypocritical. And I think how
Hmm.
we rise up as a scene is doing things like I just talked about. You have to view, how do you want to be viewed? Do you want to be viewed as someone that's going to keep the scene safe, or are you going to be someone that's going to turn the cheek and be that person to allow it to continue? So it's like, I feel like that's something, God, that could be a 2 hour conversation here about that. I mean, we kind of talked about like where it went wrong.
I wanted to, backtrack more so for things that go wrong. Is that another thing I want to bring up, again, as somebody who has survived abuse, okay, is the constant need for proof. Like, Everybody who has allegations needs to have proof. You need to have proof. But the thing is, most people who are victims are not going to have proof.
No, I
There's
didn't.
not going to be a paper trail. There is not going to be screenshots necessarily. And sometimes, a lot of times, the people that are doing the abuse purposely make it that way so that there isn't proof. But the thing is, even with people who have seems like really good proof, like the victim that came forward with brand new recently, lots of proof, people are still denying it, completely shutting it out. And the thing is, it's nothing is enough proof for anybody. Nothing is.
Yeah.
It does not matter. And the thing is, like, the same people that are screaming about proof are worried about abusers' reputations. But the
Hmm.
thing is, all these people who need to have their reputations, protected, at the most, get a slap on the wrist. And then the victims have to constantly see their abuser loved and adored and put on a big, huge platform while trying to deal with their trauma actively.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem that, like, nobody seems to care to see. And I think maybe it's because of my, abuse background. I don't know. I don't know, people just cannot see long term to understand the issues with this. But we're seeing this time and time again, and not even just with, musicians, you see it with actors, you see it with anybody that's in the limelight, but even if it's not like a famous person, but somebody, that's been abused that lives in the same town as you, like, you still deal with that. People are still worried about the reputation of the person that did the problem. Like, it just, anytime somebody comes forward with anything, please stop screaming for proof. More than
Well,
likely, there's not going to be a lot of it. And
no.
again, even if there is, people still deny it. So
Hmm.
stop screaming for proof.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like even me, like in my history of that and in my
Yeah.
experience, I should say, is yeah, there is no proof. And that's what part of the reason in my experience, like I'm not saying it was music industry related, but like
Yeah.
part of my thing is there's no proof.
Yeah.
I will say there are interactions I've had with certain people. It wasn't any sexual assault or anything, but just weird
Mhm.
behavior.
Yeah.
Of course, there is
Yeah.
no proof. It is my word against everybody's. And that is another reason why I personally have not come forward about some things because,
Yeah.
again, what you hit with, and you have to think about
You're
that.
still going to have people always deny. And that's the thing about when it comes to allegations and victims, is that it is expected that there's going to be pushback. No matter who it is, whatever position they have, there's always going to be pushback. I dealt with it.
Hmm.
My
Yeah.
abuser was some famous person. Um,
Yeah. I
it
think,
comes with the territory. And I don't think people understand that that is a big reason why a lot of victims do not come forward in any
mhm,
capacity of it, is because there is always pushback. And if you're not and the reason why a lot of times these victims come out way after the fact is because they finally come out when they are mentally prepared to deal with the backlash.
mhm. Right. And I think that's really important for people to understand too. Because you'll hear people, oh, it's the perfect time. Oh, go look at this
Mhm.
timing.
Yeah.
And I think also
Yeah.
sometimes, like in certain situations, maybe it is the timing, and you can say like this because I will say maybe if someone's gone away for a while and they're coming back, and then you're hit with it again. So there is that aspect of that is
Exactly.
why there is quote unquote timing. It is because it's brought back up and it's
Mhm.
resurfaced. And I think too. I guess I mean, I can say like where we wanted to go. We want
Yeah.
accountability. We want those things. I will say there's this really great group. I don't know if you know about them on Instagram, and I'll tag them. It's Safe
Yeah.
Gigs for Women.
I feel like I've seen them somewhere.
They're
Yeah.
in London. So if there's something like that in the US, somebody let me know. But they're in
If there's
London.
not one in the US, somebody make it.
Yeah, somebody make
Like,
it
somebody make it.
because I'm gonna say that because I think it's really, really great what they're doing. And I think there were a couple articles when I was doing a little bit of research of where do I want this to go, what
Yeah.
organizations. I couldn't pinpoint a lot, but what I
Mhm.
could pinpoint a lot here at least there are people that are kind of taking it amongst themselves in the music scene of calling out people,
Yeah.
and making sure the people that have these venues are making sure that they're not allowing people to play, because you have to
Yeah.
understand, someone that comes to play in these safer scenes and that are these promoters. If some people don't have anywhere to play, they will not be able to play. Now, I am not asking anybody to not let anyone not have a job because of this, take
Yeah.
their money. I'm not saying that. But if someone is well known in that, how some of these acts, or whether it's not even the band, right? Maybe it's the manager allowing it. Because again, you look at the situation like
Yep.
Brand New,
Sometimes it's depending on who. Yeah.
the manager was facilitating that.
Absolutely.
Why was
Mm-hmm.
he? He liked the money. He liked the
Mm-hmm.
being of Brand New. And
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of times too, and there are some wonderful managers, but I think a lot of times you get into these situations where it is not the band and it is the other
Mm-hmm.
people. I myself will just bring up something really quick because I feel like, oh my God, this episode's going to be so long, guys. But I think for me, it's one of those things of, I think back to when I saw Taking Back Sunday in Chicago. So I'll be quick about it. Long story short, there were these girls that would travel for the shows a lot. Now again, I'm not saying anything is happening, everybody, but what I'm saying is there were these young girls that would travel, and we had to be like 18, 19 at the time. So like we were young, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were get like from the manager. They're like, I'm going to message the manager. I'm going to this show. Just their interaction, I personally saw. And again, nothing sexual, nothing. I'm not accusing anyone here. I'm not dropping the ball. What I'm saying is, it was just a weird kind of, why does she have their number? Why are
Mm-hmm.
they messaging about going to shows? Again, you can easily say, hey, that's just a manager seeing fans, hugging them up with show tickets. What is so wrong about that? I think, again, and I'm not putting them under the bus, but what I'm just saying is like those type of situations are where it can turn
Yeah.
into
It's a
something
slippery
else.
slope.
It's a slippery slope. And I think
Mm-hmm.
back to those things. And I think back to what I also, where I would like it to go is, again, people call people the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Men
Mm-hmm.
stand up for us.
Yep.
I don't care if we are young. I don't care if you see your bro doing something, or you
Mm-hmm.
know he is seeing certain little younger girls, or just even not even younger girls, any type of woman, and
Yeah.
putting them in a position of using their power, or being a certain way, or maybe they take the girl back to the bus after a show, and you can tell the girl is not with it. You stand up. I know it's not an easy thing. I'm not a man. I'm speaking from a man's perspective, but I'm not a man. So
Mm-hmm.
just be there for us. If we say something like, hey, that guy's creepy. I've been in positions where back at home at venues with men, I've said like, hey, this dude is being really creepy towards me. And the guys I was with were really wonderful and protecting me. And I think that that's really important that we have that in small venues and big venues,
Mm-hmm.
at festivals, to have that safety net. Like I should know that if I go to someone, or someone's going to look out for me. Like I don't drink anymore. It's long story short, I don't do it anymore. But like if I were to be drunk or
Yeah.
incoherent or not with it, I want to know that someone else has my back.
Yeah.
And especially your friends. I know it's not easy to stand up to your friends or your bandmate or your managers or whoever, but I think we need the men in the scene to stand up. And there are a lot of great men in the scene. I know it. I know a couple of them, but I think we really need the dudes to stand up for the women and girls,
Yeah.
and not just type it on the internet, but be there.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Like you hit a lot of the points that I wanted to make is that we really need people that will actually actively stick up for victims. And I know it really sucks when it's like, oh my God, this band is so much for me. I love them so much. I can't stop listening to them. Listen, I get it. I'm an
Hmm.
autistic person.
Yeah.
I cannot move on to new music. But here's the thing, here's what you can do. You can still listen to these bands, but do it in an active way that does not support them.
Hmm.
Streaming doesn't make a lot of money for them.
Hmm.
Okay. Listening to hard copies, you're good. You already paid for that, you're fine. It's where you're like, I'm gonna still go to shows. I'm gonna still buy their merch. That's when it's a problem and you're still supporting an active, horrible person.
And
You know what I mean?
I will
So
say
like I
though,
get it.
I just want to say too, because Listen, I've been one of those people that has monetarily, because I guess if you think of Spotify, right? Now I know they
Yeah.
don't make a lot of money, but that still is, and I've held myself accountable. So also like don't feel too bad if you're listening to that and you're like, I need like this
Mhm.
is how I do it.
Yeah.
Little changes like okay, the shows or merch and things like you
Yeah.
just said, because
Yeah.
I just hope
That's why I wanted to
someone,
highlight that. Like, if you're still listening
mm,
to the music, it's fine. Like,
yeah,
that's not their moneymaker. That's why I want to make sure that to point that out because, like,
yeah,
listen, I'm gonna still listen to a lot of the bands that I know have done horrible things, and I
yeah,
get
you're
it. I understand.
human. You're
I get it.
human.
But I am actively making sure I'm not giving them that's going to profit them. I'm not going to go to their shows. I'm not buying their merch. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go tell somebody, hey, yeah, listen to this band. They're a horrible, horrible person.
Well, we
But
talked
like,
about this with brand
yeah,
new. I almost thought, and this is where somebody says she's gonna be a hypocrite, but just hear me out. I almost thought I could maybe potentially separate that art from the artist
yeah,
and go to that tour.
yeah,
But I knew, like you just said, that is
hmm,
directly, and especially
yeah,
as expensive as hell tickets.
hmm,
Can I sit with myself and buy that expensive ticket? Not even expensive, just take that out. Can I sit with myself and go to that knowing that
yeah.
I'm doing that? No, I couldn't. So
And
I
the
said
thing is,
no.
the
But
more you still go to these shows where that's where their money gets, it's how they make their money. If you keep going to these shows, the venues are going to be like, oh, it does not matter if there's allegations. We're going to
well,
still book these people. You know what I'm
they
saying?
see that.
It
They saw
feeds the
that with
machine.
yeah. Oh,
It
yeah.
feeds the machine.
And that's the
So
thing.
if you keep actively doing things like going to shows of people that are horrible, it's not going to ever stop any of this.
No, and this is why we're here in 2025 still talking
Yeah.
about it. And people are wondering why someone like Brand New can come back. How can they? Or any of the other people. It's
Hmm.
because, again, all of these things we talked about
Yeah.
today, like all of these collectible things. And I think the number one thing we can do to create safer scenes is I hate the if you see something, say something.
No,
But
it's true
really, but
though.
it's
And again,
true if you do.
like you pointed out, I even wanted to make sure to note it as well, is that women calling out men does not do anything. It's
Hmm.
ridiculous. It shouldn't be a thing, but we need men to call out men.
Yeah.
Anytime it doesn't matter if it's your buddy, it doesn't matter if it's somebody famous. You need to be like, dude, that's weird. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you're being really weird. Point it out because nobody likes to hear that. And the more you shame
No.
them, the less likely it's going to keep happening because they need to be
Yeah.
shamed.
Yeah.
Like, call
100.
it out. And it needs to be from men. And it's been
Hmm.
like psychologically proven. Things
Yeah.
that like stop incel culture and things like that is men calling out other men. So please call it out. If you're a man, you see it, it doesn't matter who it is. Be like, dude, you're being really fucking weird. it's you don't have to be like go up and punch him in the face necessarily. Just make him feel really, really icky.
Hmm. Uh,
It helps.
yeah. No. And
Um, I also want to make sure that I highlight somebody as well that I see constantly trying to, you know, actively try to help make the scene better online. Anyways, that I've seen is Valerie's Voice. She's on
hmm.
Instagram. She's on TikTok. She is actively trying to do things. She's younger than us. There's things that I think that we see a lot more than she has, obviously, just because we're older, but she's actively trying to help the scene. I think that's really notable. And we need more content creators willing to do that because like she targets fans that like I didn't get into because I'm older. So like maybe that's
Yeah.
part of it. Like, but I do actively see her trying to talk about it and trying to do things to help make things safer. And I think it's really important to note the work that she's doing. And I think we need more creators to do that. And what I would like to see is more men creators talking about it personally
Yeah. I was
because
just
we
gonna
need that.
say, like, listen, I like Valerie's voice. I do think the only negative thing, and people do not kill me over this with Valerie's voice, is I think sometimes when she can come across, maybe her messaging to me is missed. And I think that sometimes people look at that and they're like, oh, she's just, and again, it goes back to the woman thing, like you said,
It's a
you
big
go
woman
back to
thing.
that. And I
A
think
hundred
it's
percent.
one of those things. And I think sometimes I'm like, all right, girl, I hear you a little bit. But I also see the other side of it, right? I see that other side. But it's one of those things of I do think I would love if more male
We
creators.
need more male creators calling it out.
Again, what do we say? Like, I guess to kind of wrap it up a little bit is to the number one thing is men. We need men to
Number thing, one thing is
the
men
the prop. Yes. The
need to shame other men.
Yes, and I think the number one thing is I know some personally that I've met here in New Jersey. I will say this about New Jersey. They don't fuck around. And they are very people may have their own views in that, but I notice in this scene I feel so safe. I feel safer than when I was in Chicago. And that's no dig on that or that, but I will say that I am someone that has seen different music scenes and also seen I don't know culture if you call it East Coast to Midwest, but it's one of those things that I think we need the men. Again, if you just listen to this, I would love if you were a guy and you were watching this on TikTok or you were listening to this and you were
Mhm.
like, hey, wait, now thinking back, there was a situation there or a situation there. Because being a keyboard warrior or even making a TikTok video is one thing. We need people on the forefront and there of saying that's not okay
Mhm.
or and protecting and looking out after these young girls that are
Yeah.
attending shows and not even young girls, just
Not, as I
women in
said, not
general.
even young girls. It's
Because
girls of all ages, to be
because
perfectly honest.
it's one of those things and I think that's why this was so important to highlight this episode about safe scenes because safe
Yeah,
scenes in Jersey.
we've been kind of
Um
talking about this in the works for a while about how we were going to talk about it and how we
yeah.
were going to talk, bring it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And so I mean honestly, we can give big thanks to is it Ayana? Is
Hmm.
that how we say her name? Um, when she came forward with the brand new stuff, it was like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we know what we need to do.
Yeah, because also,
Yeah,
like I've said before, I wanted to hold myself accountable because I'm someone I never want to come across here, whether it's talking about mental health or music,
yeah.
that I'm immune to that. Like I had to check myself of like, well, look at what
Nobody
you have
is
said and
immune
done.
not putting their favorites on a pedestal
Yeah,
in any
and
manner,
I think it's
and it's bound to happen.
hmm
You know what I mean? It's just you're human, and I think that's a big part of it as well. It's like, do not take this as a way of like feeling bad if you have been complicit in any of this, because we all have. I have, Lisa, we've all been
yeah,
there.
yeah, we've all been
And
there.
this is just kind of like a gentle sit down to be like, listen, we all do it, but we all need to do better about trying to work towards making it stop.
Yeah. And that's the only thing I can say is if you're listening to this and you get all the way through is what can we do? And that's why I say like start locally if you want, if that's your thing,
Yeah.
but also just understand where we can take this instead of just locally. And let's take it into festival season. Let's have a safe festival season.
Mhm.
Let's be safe online. Let's protect
Yeah.
people and call it out. And again, I know we all want to be I not me, but I know a lot of people want to be TikTok creators. I know a lot of people want to be this. I don't. I know people I don't. But
Mhm.
like for me, I know people want to be that and they want to see that. And if they see
Mhm.
someone, hey, they can give me this. Really, really think twice about
Yeah.
who you are
Stick to
platforming on
your
your
morals.
yes,
And
morals
in a
first.
world where people don't think it's cool to have morals
Mhm.
and they think
It's
it's
cool.
cringe, don't care.
No.
It's cool.
No, I don't care if it's cool either. And I think
It
I
doesn't matter how ridiculous you think you feel. Having people that are willing to see other people's safety is always going to be the coolest person in the room.
that's it. That's my
Mhm.
clip. That's my clip because that's so true. I think that's why one of the things I value on this podcast is I always said that I was going to be that way and I've maintained it. And I'm one of
Mhm.
those people that I never wanted to be that person to go against my morals. I've
Yeah.
had these conversations with my fiance even when I would be in certain situations where I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. How am I going to be perceived? And am I okay with that?
Mhm.
Can I sit with that? That I may not get those opportunities because I'll be known as
Yeah.
XYZ. And I've
Yeah.
always said, Yes, I would rather be known as someone that's trying to make the scene a better place
Yeah.
than be known as someone that gets those bigger opportunities or is schmoozing with you know who in the
Yeah.
press tents and that's not directed towards anyone, by the way, because I know some
Yeah.
people that have been in the press,
It's
but
just
I'd rather not
the
schmooze.
basis of our platform is to be a safe space for everybody.
Hmm.
And we stick to our guns. And even if we know what would make us more, put out there more and out more would be if we were to platform these people
Yeah,
that we know are problematic, have allegations. Like, no, we don't
no.
care about that. We want to make sure that people are safe no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter their gender, no matter their orientation. You deserve to be safe, and we are going to make sure that we are a space that can give that to you.
And
Mm.
because God, oh my God, this episode's gonna be a long one. Oh my God. But
We
all right, so
have a lot to say.
listen, yeah. So I want to thank everyone that's listened to this point. I know this is a bit of a longer one, but I really hope that you guys have retained what we're talking about and truly look at yourselves and others and ways. And if you know of ways that we can keep the scene a safer place and we didn't touch on, and you're part of this newer generation, I would love to hear you comment,
Yeah.
DM,
Like,
inbox,
I
whatever.
think we have a lot of younger people in the scene who have really good ideas and good ways of trying to achieve things that we in our old age have never thought of.
No,
And I
yeah.
think your voices are just as important to those of us who are elder.
Absolutely. And that's why I appreciate anyone that wants to talk to us about that and message
Yeah.
us and let us know. I would love to do that. And as you guys know, new episodes every Tuesday on here. We're going to have a bunch of guests planned. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, if I'm going to do it every other week yet. I don't know. But either way, new episodes every Tuesday. We will figure it out. Justine is back. As always, if you guys like what you are hearing, please, please, please subscribe, follow the show. You won't be bombarded with emails. I know you hear subscribe and may think that. It really helps our show out and pushes us out. I know it can happen. I've seen it happen when you guys do that. As well as a positive rating and review. It goes such a long way, and it would really mean a lot to us if you just hit that 5 star, or even that 4 star, whatever you want to do. But I think you'll hit that 5 star. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. All right, bye guys.
Bye.